And we're recording. In this video, I'd like to talk you through getting Play set up and running on Turing, especially because there's a wrinkle. We've got caught out by an upgrade in the version of Play in 2.6. There's an extra thing that you're going to need to do, otherwise you're going to get really confused as to why you can't access your server. Right. Let's start. So, to begin with, in the instructions, I mentioned that we need to tell the Scala build tool how to deal with UNE's proxy. And this is only if you're developing on Turing. And so if I pop across to, this is X to go, so this is a desktop that is on Turing, and let us open a terminal. And I say that we need to make a directory that's called .sbt. Tilde is Unix shorthand for your home directory. So we need a .sbt directory in our home directory. Now, as it happens, I already have one. So if I ls.sbt, there's some files already in there. Nonetheless, I could just run make directory -p sbt, and it's not going to, that did not copy. Going to have to type it manually. It's not managing to paste for me. /.sbt, and well, it's already there, so it's not going to do anything. And so if I have a look in there, well, it's not changed anything. There already was a .sbt directory in my home directory. And I then said to copy this particular file into that SBT directory, and so that's cp ~cosk360 public html /files/repositories into my .sbt directory. And if I have a look in that file, this is going to tell SBT about a repository that it can look libraries up in called Hopper, Artifactory on Hopper. And that means that SBT won't need to get through the UNE proxy. It'll still try to get through the UNE proxy, and you'll see a lot of warnings that say your proxy requires authentication the first time you run SBT as it tries to get down its libraries, but it should nonetheless succeed. It can take quite a while downloading the libraries the first time. It doesn't take so long in future times because it will have cached these in the .sbt directory in your home directory. You'll see there's .sbt /0.13, and sorry, that keeps some of the information there. Actually, sorry, it keeps it in the IV2, and in the cache here we will see where it has kept a lot of different Scala libraries that it has, and Java libraries that it has downloaded from the internet. Sorry, SBT uses Ivy as its library resolution system. Okay, so that was about teaching SBT how to get through the proxy. If you're working on Turing, you will also need to get a unique port. This is so that you don't all try and start servers on the same port and then discover that you're clashing with each other. So if I run the mytomcat port script, well, that says wbilling, why don't you use port 50584? So I'll note that down on a post-it note next to my microphone, 50584. That's the port I'm going to be using. And then we want to clone the base app. So I am going to cd into a cosk360 directory. And in there, as it happens, I'm going to go into a play experimental directory just because I know that's an empty directory. And then I need to run the set proxy script to set my login details for the web proxy, because Git, the version control system that I'm going to use to pull down the starter app, is going to need to get through the proxy even if SBT isn't. And then I'm going to do git clone, and the URL is https github.com/play-java-starter-example.git. And that's now cloning. If I'd set my password incorrectly, I would have got a 407 error from the proxy. 407, if the proxy gives you that error, you've either not set your run the set proxy script, or when you ran it, you mistyped your password. Okay, so now that gives me a directory play Java starter example, and let's cd into that, and let's ls, and we can see the app directory that's going to contain a lot of the code, build.spt, which is the build definition file. There's a conf directory that contains the roots file, amongst other things, etc. All right. Next, I've said here to do a git remote remove origin. When I cloned the repository, it remembered where it came from. And so at the moment it is tracking in case, if I did a git pull, it would pull any updates from the repository on GitHub where this starter code came from. Now, as I turn this starter code into a project, I might want to push some of my changes to GitLab instead, but I'm not going to be able to push them back to that starter repository up on the internet because I don't have permission to push into the starter project examples that TypeSafe provide. So I'm going to remove the origin, so that's removing the link between this and GitHub. So later on, if I want, I can add a link between this and GitLab and push my code up onto gitlab.une.edu.au to share with the class or with the lecturer to answer questions about my code. All right, so we've had a look, we've done an ls and we've seen what's there, and then we say to start the server. So let's run sbt, and we run it in the directory that has build.sbt in it. And then after a moment, this will load the build.spt definition, and you'll see the resolving is happening really quickly for me. The first time you do it, it will happen really slowly, and it will give you lots of warnings that it's trying to get out through the proxy, and your proxy requires authentication, but it should eventually succeed. And then there we are now at a prompt within SBT, and we can say run 50584, and that will start the server on port 50584. It will probably resolve an awful lot more libraries now that are needed to compile this code, and the first time you do it, it might even need to compile the compiler interface. So the first time this can be quite slow, but now it is listening on port 50584, but I'm about to encounter a problem. Let me pull up a browser, and let me pull up a new tab, and let me go to Turing .une.edu.au. I'm inside the firewall. The firewall is not going to get in my way. 50584, and I go over here and it says it's compiling 7 Scala sources and 9 Java sources. So it's received the request and it's compiling away, and in a moment, what has happened? It has enabled certain filters, and it's got this information, play application started, and I've got an error. I've got an allowed hosts filter, host not allowed, turing.une.edu.au 50584, and over here I've got an error, bad request. What's happened? Is my code broken? Is my server not working? Unfortunately, what has happened is we have got caught out by a security upgrade in version 2.6 of the Play framework. And if we go to the documentation for 2.6, built-in filters, and this is new from 2.6 that they've enabled these default filters. Play now comes with a default set of enabled filters defined through configuration. And so the default is now to set these enabled filters, and one of these filters is the allowed hosts filter. There's another filter there called the security headers filter. These are going to get in your way. You haven't been taught about these headers yet, and so what we want to do temporarily is just switch them off. And so to just switch them off, I am going to open first of all, I'm going to open a file browser. Sorry, that's that one. And I'm going to go into Play Experimental, Play Java Starter example. Here I am with my app, my conf, my logs, etc. I'm going to go into the conf file, and I'm going to open something called application.conf. And if I pop back into the description down here in default filters, and I scroll down, testing with this, testing with that, disabling default filters. This is what I'm going to do. To remove the default filters, you can set the entire list manually. Play filters enabled equals empty brackets. And so let's copy that. And if I pop back in here, well, shall we just paste this down at the bottom? And let's it's not going to let me paste that in. Play dot filters dot enabled equals empty square brackets, and let's save it. And now let's go back over here and let's stop the server just by hitting enter, and let's run 50584 again. And now it's ready. And now let's go and make a request to it. Where's my window gone? No, welcome to play. That I think is from when I was testing it before. Let's open a new tab just to be sure that I am making the request now and not showing you a page I prepared earlier. And now it thinks about it, and now it says your new application is ready. So now we're running, and now we're able to access it. And I'm behind the firewall, so I can access it from here. But for example, if I was to open a browser here on Turing, and I was to go wbilling and enter my password as for the proxy, and then go localhost : 50584, and your new application is ready. Now, incidentally, in here, I've also done something slightly odd. I've gone into the preferences and into the advanced tab, and on the network and connection settings, I've told that manual proxy configuration. Let's just switch that back to the system proxy configuration just to check it's okay. The system proxy configuration has an awkward habit of sending even requests to localhost through the proxy. There we go. Unfortunately, if I try and access it like so from Turing, it's going to say it's unreachable. That's because it makes the request over to the proxy, and the proxy then goes and asks what localhost is, and the localhost is the machine that the proxy is running on, not the machine my code is running on, which is a bit of a pain. But let's put Turing in, and now it can access it. So that is just kind of one of those extra annoying little wrinkles of working on the server, but also that extra little wrinkle of, oops, they've enabled security filters when I updated us to the version that were released 2 days before course started. Unfortunately, I also picked up the security filters. Oops. Right. Let's now